Hello and welcome to me on Sunday. I want to be able to come and say hi live to you every week. We'll see how well I make that happen. So, one of the things that I really like doing is doing origami stuff. I hadn't done any for a really long time. It used to be something that I would do in high school. I'd make these little boxes. Theoretically, you could fill them up with water and like use them like paper water balloons and toss them at somebody. Anyway, they look like this. Little teeny tiny puffy stars. And they start out as a strip of paper. And you fold it and fold it and fold it. And when you're done folding it, you get this little flat star type of thing. And then you just take your thumbnail and you push one side in and it starts forming a star. Hi, Cara. And coincidentally, I have this shirt with little gold stars on it that I really like. So I thought maybe I could make some more of these origami stars. I'm blaming my friend. I'm not going to say their name, but we were all having a little group chat one night, and they just randomly showed that they had made a bunch while we were all chatting. And I was like, that's it. I need to make more stars. So I got this paper and I started making it. The nice thing about these stars is that they're glow in the dark paper, or at least the star part of the paper is glow in the dark. I'll see if I can show you guys that a little bit later. So here's the thing. I want to keep rambling on to you, at you, with you while I make these stars, but I wonder if with every fold, every twist, every tuck that I make, that you can find that you might be fascinated with the stars, either on my shirt, the ones that just happen to be here. I could even turn on, the ones I'm making, I could even turn on my other little camera. Let's see if we can make something else happen. Let's see if we can do that. I don't know how well this is gonna focus or not, because it's a very tight little space in here. But let's see if I turn that other camera on and if I made that work. Maybe you can see, yeah, can you see that? All the stars I've made, a couple of my rings in there too, maybe some of that you'd recognize. The camera, unfortunately, where the stars are, is slower speed than my regular camera. It's not as good at coming along with what I'm saying and what I'm doing. Hi, John. Thank you for saying that. I would love it if you would drop into a deep trance while I rambled on, while you looked at the stars and counted them. So one of the other things I have in here, there is a lot of stuff in this tiny little room. One of the other things I have in here is this little spotlight. I'm going to show it to you. Look, it's like this, like a little teeny tiny spotlight, right? I could stick it on the wall, except these walls are fabric, but I could stick it somewhere, or I could, screw it in place. But I like the idea that I can shine light on something. This might be a little bit too much, but if I take that away, maybe the stars will glow for you guys a little bit. Ooh, look at that. They do glow. It looks like one of the rings is glowing a little too. There's a ring in here that looked like it was glowing just a bit. Well, I do love my shiny things, and I guess now I also love my glowy things. So, but however you find yourself paying attention and listening, whether you're looking at the stars on my shirt, whether you're looking at the stars in the bowl, whether you're wondering if I'm going to do something more trancy than that, because I might. Sometimes I do. I wonder if your brain just knows that it feels really good to listen to the sound of my voice and to discover that you can find yourself dropping deeply into trance. Now, why do you want to find yourself going deeply into trance while I'm making stars and showing stars and talking about stars? Well, it is a common classic symbol, right? Like the idea that you might find yourself at night looking at the stars could be fun. You could be out there lying on a nice soft hill with grass underneath you, looking up the stars, looking at the constellations, thinking about which one is your favorite, and you could find yourself dropping deeply into trance. You could count them one after the other, after the other, and you could find yourself dropping deeply into trance. There's so many different stars that your brain might just get a little overwhelmed and overloaded. And it might feel really good to know that no matter what it is that I'm saying, that maybe your unconscious mind just knows that it feels so much better to pay attention to the stars and the things that I'm saying, and that at some point in time, you can focus on whatever you want visually, or you could close your eyes. That's totally fine too. But no matter if you keep your eyes open or if you shut them, you can realize that it feels so good to allow yourself to know that no matter what you try counting or don't, whether it's sheep or stars, the number of times I say either one of those words, facets in any of the shiny things that I might possibly show you, that your brain just really appreciates being able to drop deeply into trance at any given moment. Sometimes I have people who tell me that they're analytical and they just have a hard time going into trance. My thing that I might normally say to somebody who's analytical, hello, Jonathan, is to say to them, if you're analytical, that means your brain should be good at figuring out how to do things, right? And if your brain is good at figuring out how to do things, then your unconscious mind can probably figure out a way to let you go deeply into trance, to, as I sometimes inelegantly say, to shove your conscious self out of the way and to let your unconscious mind drive the truck. Because it feels really nice when your conscious self gets to take that little break. For so many people these days, our conscious minds are so busy, so loud, there's just so much going on, and we need a respite. We need something else to do so that when we finally pick up doing all the things that we have to get done, we feel really, really good about what it's like to go back to do those things because we finally gave ourselves a break. So I wonder if your unconscious mind can feel what it's like to take that break. And if your unconscious mind can take that break and to just allow the things that I'm doing, making these little tiny stars, making all these little folds, you can listen to the sound of my voice and you can feel yourself just give in a little bit. You can feel yourself giving in to the thought that it feels so much better to go deeply into trance, that there's something wonderfully powerful, submissive, obedient about being able to go into trance to the sound of my voice, that it just becomes more and more relaxing and effortless for your unconscious mind to go, okay, I'm going to pay attention to the sound of Lee's voice. I'm going to let the conscious self hear too, because why not? But the conscious self doesn't really need to respond, right? The conscious self doesn't need to respond to the sound of Lee's voice. That's my job. That's the job of the unconscious. And when your unconscious mind responds to the sound of my voice and the things that I say, perhaps what you notice is that things start to take shape. And when things start to take shape, like these little stars in my little fingers, maybe your brain realizes that there are things that you would like to have take shape in your life. Now, as these things take shape in your life, maybe your brain realizes that you're so good at doing all sorts of things. It's funny, I think that most people are really good at doing all sorts of things. And because most people are really good at doing all sorts of things, sometimes they're not aware that there are things that they could do a little bit better. But I wonder right now if you could find yourself dropping deeply into trance, if you could feel yourself surrender and say yes to how good it feels to be deeply in trance, if you could acknowledge that your unconscious mind can just get better and better at dropping deeply into trance, at saying yes to listening to the sound of my voice, at giving in to the things that I say, and realizing that when you get better at going deeply into trance and listening to the sound of my voice, your unconscious mind can feel empowered to make sure that you are always making the best life choices you possibly can for yourself. And the more you find yourself making those life choices that are good for you, the easier everything gets. Why do we want to challenge ourselves? Why do we want to live a life that is so tough, so hard, so powerfully hard for us, right? Isn't it nice to think that your unconscious mind could lead the way in ensuring that you know how to do the things that you really need to do, that you can always learn something else? You're smart, you're clever, aren't you? Let your unconscious mind think right now about how good it feels to let your conscious self take a little break. And when your conscious self takes that little break, your brain can know that whether or not you find yourself counting stars, or maybe your eyes are just closed, I don't know, that whatever it is that you find yourself doing, you can unconsciously be aware that your unconscious self is better and better at doing all sorts of things, at taking all sorts of information in and just adjusting it, processing it, so that it is for you as good as it can possibly be. Let your unconscious mind think about how good it feels for you to find yourself dropping and sinking down deeper into trance, and how the more you find yourself going deeply into trance, the more enjoyable it can be, the more pleasurable it can be, the more fascinating it can be. So let your unconscious mind drop down deeper and deeper into trance. While you find yourself dropping down deeper and deeper into trance, whether or not you count, whether or not you find yourself giving in, I'm going to tell your unconscious mind how amazing it is. Because I know that your unconscious self gets to control each and every one of your senses. It takes in so much information, and your conscious self can't possibly process that all. So as your unconscious mind takes in that information, it learns a lot of stuff. Sometimes our conscious selves act like entitled CEOs. Like they know exactly what's going on, exactly what's best for the company, and they never take any changes or adjustments into the world around them, which is to say you. Now, a business has different kind of parameters that they use to measure things, like sales. And as a human being, we don't necessarily treat ourselves in that same way. We don't necessarily do analytics on our life and go, gosh, in what ways could I possibly improve myself? Now, there may be some things that you find yourself thinking, oh, well, I could learn to speak a new language, or I could start doing some coding, or I could take up exercise, or something like that. And for you, those might be ways in which you can measure your own personal performance, right? But a lot of times, we let things slide. Our days are overwhelming. We want our nights to be as relaxing as they possibly can. And sometimes what that means for us is that we just don't really have a lot of time to focus on ourselves and the things that we really want to do, because our conscious self is in charge. And so sometimes being able to drop very deeply into trance and to allow our unconscious mind to take over is exactly what we need. So I wonder right now if your unconscious mind can just let you drop down deeply and powerfully into trance, can give in to the thought and the idea that your conscious self needs a break. And because your conscious self needs a break, you should take one right now. You can take one with all the little stars, and you can discover that your unconscious mind really just appreciates how nice it feels to drop deeply into trance. The more deeply into trance you go, the more stars you count, no matter which ones you see, these or these, that your brain can really just think that it feels good to count the stars, to drop deeply into trance, more deeply into trance with every star that you count. Maybe you count the points of the stars. Maybe you're doing math in your head, because each one of those stars has 5 points. Maybe your brain knows that no matter how many points the stars have, or no matter how many stars you find yourself counting, that every single time you find yourself dropping down a little bit more deeply into trance, there's something about that that feels good. There's something about that that allows your unconscious mind the delight of just accepting that you know how to surrender and give in to the sound of my voice. And that as you find yourself surrendering and giving in to the sound of my voice, it feels better than just about anything. It gives you more pleasure, more fun, more wonder. So let your unconscious mind just keep saying yes to those thoughts and those ideas. Let your unconscious mind simply hold on to how fascinating it is for you to realize that your unconscious mind needed a break and gets to take one right now. Even if it's just for a few minutes, your unconscious mind can know that when you listen, you can find yourself giving in, and you can allow your unconscious mind to know how wonderful it is. Because I only talk, well, usually, I only talk directly to your unconscious mind. Your unconscious mind is the source of all your power. Well, a lot of your power. Okay, most of your power. And the more you find yourself listening to your unconscious self and doing what it says, whether or not on a conscious level you're aware that you're actually paying attention to your unconscious mind, the easier it can be for you to just get stuff done. One of my favorite things to do with people that I work with, especially when they tell me that there are things in their lives that they just don't want to do. They don't want to do them, they don't want to do them, they don't want to do them, but they have to do them. Does that sound like anything that you find yourself having to do? Go ahead and find yourself paying attention to the thought that if your unconscious mind could drop itself into a trance, could drop you into a trance, and then just go and do the things that you didn't want to do, and then you could come out of trance and you could see on a conscious level that you had already done these things, wouldn't that be nice? And I love that our conscious selves can allow that to happen because our unconscious mind can make it happen. Because your unconscious mind can know that whether there's something that you need to do, like, say, washing the dishes, or your laundry, or making your bed, or finishing that report, or whatever, that there's something that you can find yourself doing that makes that happen. On an unconscious level, as long as all the pieces are in place, your brain can say, and your unconscious could certainly enforce all the pieces being in place, now it's time to make these changes. Now it's time to make these things happen. Now it's time to allow ourselves to have the best possible outcome of getting these things done. What could possibly be the problem with your unconscious self doing all your household chores? And I think it's fascinating to know that when you find yourself dropping deeply into trance, your brain has that power and that ability to do all sorts of things. One of my favorite things is waking trance states. I have experienced people in so many different waking trance states, and I am always a fan of how they can look exactly as though they are wide awake. They can look like they are not in a trance at all, and yet they can get these things done. And when they come out of trance, they may not even be aware of what the heck happened. They might be able to see it, but they don't always know what the heck happened. And I think that that idea that your unconscious mind can do the things that are hard for us is really, really useful and wonderful. Go ahead and let yourself drop and sink down deeper and deeper into trance. Allow your unconscious mind to notice that it can find ways to restructure itself while I'm talking and folding. And while you find yourself listening, whether your eyes are open or not, you might discover that it feels really fascinating for your unconscious mind to just realize that I am praising it, that I am telling your unconscious self that I know it does a good job, that I know it can do even more stuff for you, and that all you have to do is to let it. All your unconscious mind has to do, this is going to sound a little funny, is to seize the means of production. And as your unconscious mind does that, i.e., takes control of your conscious self and says to your conscious self, well, you're going to be deeply in trance and that's fine, and I'm going to have you do this task, and you won't even know that you're doing this task, that everything about that can be so wonderful. Let your brain just absorb how fascinatingly funny it can be. The idea that your unconscious mind just drops you into trance and makes you do the things that you don't really want to do, but you know you have to do, right? You probably have a list of what that is in your head. And then the more you find yourself in that state of letting your unconscious mind just take the lead, make your body do the things that you have to do, have conversations if you needed to. The things that you find yourself not wanting to do, your brain can just really appreciate how good it feels to be in charge unconsciously, how good it feels to just make sure that your body goes and does the stuff, and that when your body goes and does the stuff, it does it as well as it possibly can. It does the best job that it knows how to, so that you don't have to do it again later, right? And the more your unconscious mind drops you down deeply into trance and the more amazing it can feel, the easier it gets for you to keep letting this sort of thing happen. Why do you want to let this sort of thing keep happening? You want to let this sort of thing keep happening because the more your unconscious mind is capable of doing something, the better it gets at doing all the other things you want it to do. Sometimes I I'm in Discord and people are talking about how they don't get any suggestions. Like they can go into trance and they don't take suggestions in. So sometimes they say, well, it affects me. Like I want to get these things done. I want to do these things hypnotically, but I'm unable to make that happen. How do I make that happen? The first thing, yes, so many pretty stars. The first thing is that you want to ensure that your unconscious self is actually the part that's paying attention. Right now, how hard is it for your unconscious self to pay attention? For some people, they are so used to their conscious self hearing everything, responding to everything, being in charge of everything, that it can be really, really hard to let that go. But I'm telling you right now that the best way to find yourself experiencing hypnotic phenomena is to do your very best to let that go. Sometimes what that means is you do something else while you're going into trance. Now, if I were not paying attention to so many things, and maybe even if I were, I could probably go into trance while I'm making these little stars, no problem. Because it's kind of easy to do. I already know how to do them. They're not challenging. I mean, sometimes I don't make them right the first time, so maybe that's a little challenging. But I keep making these little stars, and I keep thinking about how good it feels to just have these little stars made. You know, there's a thing in, I think it's Chinese mythology, that if I were, say, making paper cranes, if you make 1,000 of those a year, it's supposed to bring you good luck for the next year. This is not what these stars are, but maybe these stars can bring you good trance. And the more you find yourself thinking about how good it feels to be deeply in trance, maybe you'll begin to realize that whether it's stars or something else shiny, whether you look up in the sky and you can count them and go deeply into trance, you know, our light pollution notwithstanding, you can let your unconscious mind know that it really is so important, that it feels so good for your unconscious mind to simply take charge and to do the things to allow you to have that conscious break. Our conscious selves are so tasked and tired these days. We have information that comes at us from all over, and it can feel really nice for your conscious self to simply let go. But people are like, well, how do I do this? So if I was to simply focus on a task on a conscious level, right? I'm focusing on a task, on folding over, which do I do? Where do I put this then? How do I tuck that? I might discover that it becomes so easy to listen to the sound of my voice. Yes, I can hypnotize myself. So I can listen to the sound of my voice and I can drop deeply into trance, listening to the things that I say. And when I drop down deeply into trance, listening to the things that I say, my unconscious mind might be able to work on other problems because it's focused on one thing and it's doing something else in the background. Now, sometimes people can watch TV. Sometimes people can put earbuds in, like one in one ear and something hypnotic in the other. So they can find themselves doing something absolutely useful in one ear. Like maybe you're listening to music in one ear, or maybe you're watching TV, or maybe you're doing something, like I said, with your hands. But your other ear's got some kind of hypno going on. And the hypno is there telling you that your unconscious mind is really quite amazing, that your unconscious self is so very good at dropping you down deeply into trance, at responding to situations, at feeling how good it can be obedient in those ways. And the more you find yourself unconsciously responding to things, the more powerful your state of trance can be. Let your unconscious mind think about how good it feels to just be in that place where you can obey anytime you want. You can give in anytime you want to being deeply in trance, to letting yourself realize that maybe you have to distract your conscious self with something shiny. Maybe you have to distract yourself with something so shiny. I'm going to share with you one of my favorite rings, although it's old and it is falling apart. So this was in that star bin. I call this this is my little world ring. I have a pink one and a blue one, and I wore the pink one till it kind of broke. One of the flies, I think it's the dragonfly, is not really connected, but it's like this incredible 3D sculpture thing, right? So there's a little pink world, there's a dragonfly and a butterfly and some flowers on it. And of course, because it's mine, it is shiny and facety and glittery and pretty. And I like that your unconscious mind could simply think it's appropriate for your conscious self to stare at something like this, to count the number of times that they wink, to see the different colors that are there, because there's more than you expect. It isn't just all pink, is it? No, not really. But the more your unconscious mind pays attention to what's going on there, the more your unconscious self knows that it's going to listen to the things that I'm saying, that it's going to pay attention and realize that it feels very good to be in charge, to be the one ensuring that your conscious self stays staring, and that your unconscious mind listens and realizes that you can always drop down more deeply into trance. You can feel good dropping into a deep sleep. You can find yourself in that space where your unconscious mind just is so happy to give in as completely and powerfully as you ever have to any trance before, and to know that when you do that, it simply becomes easier and easier every next time for you to find yourself dropping, sinking, giving in, surrendering, going into trance, learning something new, doing something good for yourself. And the more you find yourself in that state, the more amazing it becomes. So just drop and give in a little bit more. Just feel yourself surrender and give in a little bit more. And the more you realize that you can and do enjoy surrendering to this kind of shiny, to this kind of crazy little eye fractionation, eye focus, the more wonderful it can be. Why is it eye fractionation? Do you know what fractionation is in hypnosis? It's when you come up and drop down over and over and over again. You can come up all the way, you can come up some of the way, but what an eye fractionation will do is to simply allow your brain to notice that there are different things to look at. That when you look at one thing, it might bring you up out of trance. When you look at something else, it might drop you down deeper. And there are so many different things to look at that your unconscious mind can simply know that whatever it is that you're going to find yourself looking at is going to be so fascinating. You might discover that because it's so fascinating, you find yourself staring, or at some point in time, you might realize that your eyes just close, and that's okay. Because if your eyes just close and you find yourself dropping down deeper into trance right now, everything about that can just make it feel so good for you, so much better than it felt for you just a moment ago, that you find yourself wanting to keep doing it. Why do we want to go deeply in trance anyway? For most people, we just want to go deeply in trance because it feels so good. Now, some people can find that they can go deeper into trance every next time. I do encourage that with people that listen to my audios and my voice, because the more deeply in trance you go, the more conscious disappears. And the more your conscious disappears, the more your unconscious mind realizes what it can do and starts acting on its abilities, starts being able to make positive and powerful changes for you in the way that you think and behave and act. And those things can be really quite amazing. So let yourself drop and sink down deeper and deeper while you find yourself thinking of the stars, or the flashes of light from the ring, or the butterflies, or the golden glints of the stars on my shirt, or the sound of my voice, or how nice it feels for you to find yourself letting go of everything so that your unconscious mind can take over and your conscious self can take a little break. And the more your conscious self takes a little break, the happier you can feel and the better it all becomes. So let yourself just drop down deeply while you think about that. Well, you don't have to think about that at all. I'm going to work on a bunch of audios coming up. I have a bunch that I have already written. These are particular things. I don't usually like to script things, but I had an idea for a series and it's kind of long. So I wrote it all out and it's just waiting to be recorded. It's called Click. It is using a clicker or a snap to train you to drop down more deeply into trance. And I hope to begin working on that within the next month or so. But the more your unconscious mind knows that it is good at something, even if that something is you going deeply and powerfully into trance, the more amazing it feels. The more your unconscious mind drops you down deeply into trance and begins to get better and better at doing that, knows that when you listen to the sound of my voice, that as long as it's safe and appropriate, you can go into trance at almost any time. You can go more deeply, more pleasurably, more enjoyably, more profoundly, so that you get more out of the trance, so that that state of trance that you can find yourself in becomes that thing that you find yourself wanting to do whenever you have time for it, because it gives your conscious self a break. And A lot of people these days just need a break. They need a break from all the other voices inside their world that may or may not tell them things that they want to hear. And whether or not you find yourself hearing things that you want to hear, you can know that your unconscious self always wants the very best for you. So whether you're listening to my voice or to somebody else's, your unconscious mind can decide if it wants to accept, reject, or adjust suggestions that you've been given so that they are better for you, so that they are more you themed and you minded and make you happier and fit you better. But your brain can know that it feels just so good and so right, whether you're counting the stars, whether you're counting the folds that I've made, whether you're just listening to the sound of my voice and your eyes are closed, that there's something so powerful about listening and giving in. There's something so powerful about listening and giving in, and maybe you can hear the sound that that paper makes when I tie it into that first knot. Maybe you can hear the sounds of the paper as I fold it over and tuck it in. And your brain realizes that there are all sorts of things that you can figure out, that you could do, that you don't really need to actually worry yourself about, because your unconscious mind could ensure that you could do those things anytime you'd like. That your unconscious self could make sure that you do those things anytime you'd like, in a way that just feels so good for you, in a way that just means so much to you, in a way that's just so absolutely right for you. Can you drop deeper and deeper down into trance right now? Can you feel how wonderfully accommodating your unconscious mind can be as it listens to the things that I'm telling you, and as your brain thinks about how good it becomes for you to notice that you're just going to drop deeper into trance. You're just going to give in to being deeply into trance. You're simply going to accept that when you drop down deeply into trance, your brain feels happier and better because you can get things done, or you can just take a break. One of my favorite trances that I like to do is sending somebody to a place where they can create their own little safe space, their own little amazing world, where everything in that world is exactly right. And then they can make adjustments if they want. I also love doing control room trances where powerful change can happen really quickly and really easily. I love the idea that your unconscious mind can all of a sudden take something that you thought for a dozen years, all your life, and simply adjust that thought to be something else that is now more productive and now more useful for you. And the more your unconscious mind realizes that you can pay attention to the things that are really important for you, that you can find yourself just giving in a little bit more easily and a little bit more effortlessly to being deeply into trance, to feeling how good being deeply in trance is. Oh, let's listen to this again. That's right. And then the more you find yourself going deeply into trance and allowing your unconscious mind to make positive and powerful changes for you, the more you can change your life for the absolute better. Drop and sink down deeper and deeper. I always love reading stories about how people overcome their challenges. I love that kind of story, how somebody finds a way to make something work, how they realize that they have this skill, this capacity, and then they can just take advantage of their own natural abilities. Sometimes it involves not listening to other voices, because sometimes other voices in your head are not very complimentary. They tell you things like, you can't do that, or that's impossible, or why would you want to do that? You have to remember that not everyone can see things the way that you do, and that you can allow your unconscious mind to see and hear and feel things in your own way that are good for you, that are right for you, that are the best for you they can possibly be at any given moment. A lot of times we have done things as children. We have made decisions when we were kids, spur of the moment, quick decisions that we're not even aware that we made. And then later in our lives, 20 years later, we may be going, I have no idea why I do this thing. We do this thing because it served us best at the time. And sometimes we have to unlearn things we've done because it doesn't serve us anymore. So we have to learn to do something else, something different. But hold on to how good it feels right now to listen to the sound of my voice, take a nice deep breath in, and allow your unconscious mind to realize that you can clear your head of all the thoughts that might have been in there. You can let those thoughts just go away like they were being pulled out by starlight, by being just driven away by a little wind. And the more your unconscious mind realizes that it can do these things, that it feels good to do these things, that your conscious self really doesn't need those thoughts right now, and to know that when you do need those thoughts again in the future, you can have them right back when and how and where you need them. That doesn't it make sense sometimes to just give your conscious self a brief moment of quiet and of happiness and of delight and of joy and of feeling more and more pleasurable? So let your unconscious mind hold on to what that's like. And when your unconscious mind holds on to what that's like, you can find yourself just giving in. Whether you feel how good it is to give in to the stars, whether you feel how very nice it is to just accept that your unconscious mind is so delighted and so happy to say yes to being deeply and powerfully into trance, that your unconscious mind knows that your unconscious can say yes to being in charge to get things done once in a while. I wonder if you could find yourself practicing waking trances this week, going into trance and doing something like, I don't know, picking up your laundry, brushing your teeth, things that you already know how to do, but do it while you're in trance. Do it when you are moving around. Allow your body to feel how good it is to be deeply in trance and to be moving around, and see what you get. See if your results are any different. If you don't know how to go into trance when you're all by yourself, you can look at yourself in a mirror and you can think about how interesting it looks that the person that you're looking at is going into trance, and watch the person in front of you go into trance, and notice that you go into trance at the same time too. So hold on to those thoughts and hold on to those ideas, and on the count of 10, find yourself coming up all the way wide awake. Let me know in the comments how many stars you saw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Take a nice deep breath in. 8, stretching a little bit. 9, opening up your eyes. And 10, wide awake. I would, as always, like to thank you for being here. I would love to know what other things you want to hear live like this going into trance, what other hypnotic topics or types of trances you're interested in doing, and I will do my very best to make those happen. Good morning. I guess you're back. So let your unconscious mind think about how good it feels to be deeply in trance, to come out of trance and to be refreshed, and to just hold on to how good you can find yourself feeling for the rest of the day. I'm going to count to 10 again to wake some people up, just in case you're not all there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Wide awake again. So many stars. Yes, thank you for counting all the stars. And I hope that your brain just enjoyed getting a little bit of a break. That's a tricky way to give your brain a break, John. So. Okay, well, I will be back later this week. Thanks for joining me, and I hope that the stars are always shining on you. Have a great day. Bye.